Liaison Central School District School Board to order on August 28th, 2026 at 6:01 p.m. I do realize that we're missing 3 people. I know Jess, they will not be joining us tonight. We'll see if other board members come in shortly. But we will start off with a round of introductions. Jason, if we can start down at your end.
Jason Chance.
Robin Staddle.
Ron Macklin.
Mary Heather Noble.
James Clark.
Abigail Murphy.
Ann Mason.
Steve Cash.
Wendy Baker.
Jamie McCallum.
Members of the administration in the room to introduce. Well, actually, we'll go online to Ellen first.
Yeah.
Ellen Whelan-Weiss.
All right, and then I see Laura has raised a hand. Laura, if you want to introduce yourself.
Well, just probably needs to be. We'll come back to Laura. She's an attendee. It was that.
Oh, okay. Laura, if you're able to introduce yourself.
Laura Hartman.
All right, and then other members of the administration in the room.
Nellie Palazzo, Assistant Superintendent. Courtney Cron, Director of Teaching and Learning.
Bruce McIntyre, Director of Facilities.
All right. At this point, our first order of business, or next order of business, is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right. Is there any discussion about the agenda? All right, we will vote on the motion. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. All right, we have approved the agenda. Our next order of business is the first public comment period for the evening. We will start in the room with public comments, and then we will go online. I do want to remind everyone that there is a 3-minute limit on public comments. Before we start with public comments, Steve, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, Steve Orlick.
All right, thank you. With that, we will turn to public comments. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a public comment? Yes.
Darren Kerr, I'm a short resident. And I have 2 boys going into Brookport, which is a new transition, obviously. So one of the things that we just got last week was a bus route. One thing that was very alarming that we found out that this is a brand new system and there's going to be transfer at the Shoreham Hub with no supervision at all. That's terrifying as a parent. It needs to happen. I mean, we got new kids, K through 12, going there. This is very dangerous and very reckless. As a parent, it's terrifying. We were told from the beginning that there was going to be an oversight and supervision. Now there's not. No idea why. There needs to be oversight throughout the whole school year. As parents and educators, got to imagine the first priority is their safety. And if this was the initial thing that we're going to do, no supervision, then why not just bring them right to Brookport for the transfer? That would make a lot more logical sense. That way the kids get there, they get to mingle with the new classmates, most of them know each other, and then maybe you might be able to pick up Brookport kids along the way and actually have a less bus route. These were all things that were discussed with Mr. Matthew in meetings that we had to have. It was supposed to be clarity and bring a little more calmness to us, and they went nowhere. There's a lot of other things, great ideas that brought up to Mr. Matthew, went nowhere. It's a concern because as a parent, we're told a lot of different things. And as soon as I found out about this, I started looking for other school options for my kids. This is that scary for myself. As a Brookport thing, we accepted it. I'm accepting it. We know a lot of kids in Brookport. My sons are friends with them. We do a lot of sports with them. That wasn't a big deal. It was heartbreaking to lose Shorn. But this whole thing like this, now it's like, what other things are going to be popping up? And for me, we can't keep fighting like this. We have to keep going moving forward, but the small things like no supervision of kids, come on, that can't happen. So I hope it gets rectified before school starts. Otherwise, I mean, if I'm thinking about pulling my kids, there's many others who would too. Appreciate your thoughts and hopefully it gets rectified.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this point, are there other members of the public in the room that would like to make a comment? All right, not seeing any. All right, I'm not seeing anyone online, so at this point, we will close the public comment period. I want to remind everyone, we will have a second public comment period this evening later on in the meeting as well. All right, at this point, we will move on to agenda item C, which is a recommendation to approve the minutes from August 10th, 2026.
So moved.
All right, is there any discussion about the minutes? All right, we will vote on the minutes. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Sorry, I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there. Sorry.
All those opposed, please indicate by saying nay. All right, the minutes are approved. We have one abstention. All right, next is the approval of the ACSD bill. Jess is not joining us this evening. Jason, I believe you'll be taking us through that.
Just now reviewed the bills on August 17th. There was a general fund warrant for $1,700,048.66 and one payroll warrant for $324,866.91. We had a couple small questions that were answered almost immediately. So I move that we approve the bills as well.
All right, is there any discussion about the motion? All right, we will go ahead and vote on the motion. All those in favor of approving the bills, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. All right, the bills have been approved. Next item on our agenda is a report of the student representatives. I do not believe that either of them are with us tonight, so we will move past that. And that brings us to agenda item F, which is a solar net metering presentation by Ralph. And yes, if you would like to bring up your presentation, Ralph, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thanks. And where should I stand?
This is always kind of a question. I feel like that area is usually best. Usually Drew can kind of capture you in the camera as he needs to.
This is good.
You know,
Great. Well, anyway, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the chance to come and speak with you. I'm going to use this largely for my own benefit because I tend to digress. And I've been down in the weeds with solar net metering for quite a few years now. So that's a lot of digression that could accidentally happen. So my name is Ralph Mimo. I'm with, is there a remote control for me to use or should I just?
There is
say
not
X?
with PDF, unfortunately.
Okay, that's true. It's PDF. So if you could just jump to the next picture.
I'm just going to jump all the way down. Sorry.
So I'm based in Brattleboro. I've been in the Vermont solar scene since 2014. I work from Brattleboro. My company, which is just me, is Sun Ventures. To go to the next slide. Oops. Let's see. I just wanted to provide a little bit of background about who I am before we dive into the particulars.
While we wait for that presentation to come back,
There we go.
it's really helpful to have Ralph here to talk with you about this. What the administration needs from you is your guidance as to whether this type of a contract is something that you would be supportive of us pursuing if we find that it is in the financial best interest of the district, which we are not going to probably determine tonight. But given the length of it and the nature of the way things are in flux, we would appreciate your guidance as to whether we should further pursue it and go ahead and enter into the contract if it's in the best interest of the district financially. So
As a district wide, and that's being discovered.
So
Go ahead,
thank
Ralph.
you very much for that sort of send off. And I will, so my purpose, I'll be very specific about it. My purpose here beyond presenting the proposal, which I think you all have in your packages, and answering questions, what I typically ask for from a school board is a decision to empower the superintendent and the staff to evaluate the opportunity, to, often with the help of an attorney, to look at the net metering agreement and then make a recommendation as to whether or not it's something that the district would like to enter into. And in certain cases, to empower the superintendent or a designated officer to go ahead and sign the net metering agreement because it's met the criteria that you look for. And I want to come back a little bit to what the net metering agreement is all about at the end of this. I'm going to try to go through this relatively quickly. I think we can probably do it in about 10 minutes and then have the rest of the time for questions and conversation. If you could just go ahead, and there we go. So as I mentioned, I've been doing this since 2014. I've been working independently for the past couple of years, doing project development work, looking for sites, acting as an offtake broker, which is what I'm doing right now. And I'll talk about what off-takers are in just a moment. And I've worked in not just Vermont, but also currently in New Hampshire, New York, Illinois, and I've done some work in Maine. Each state has its own unique set of laws and regulations but they sort of are similar, and I've been able to work that way. I have a past that was in academia, was in IT, was in both the US and Europe, but I've been doing this pretty much exclusively for the past 12 years. And volunteer public service, for example, I was on my town's energy committee for 12 years. So I've engaged in town and regional or county level volunteer service. So the opportunity, basically, this is the proposal in a nutshell. To join an existing, so not a new site at all, but a site that's either under construction or already operating, an existing virtual solar net metering group in Vermont. Buy net metering credits at a discount. Credits are, and I'll get into the specifics of a lot of these definitions in a second. Credits are applied to monthly utility bills by Green Mountain Power. You would enjoy guaranteed savings in utility costs for decades. It would support clean, renewable local energy in Vermont. Costs $0 to join. There's no investment, there's no liability, there's no ownership, there's no initial fee. It's simply a discounted service agreement. Net metering customers or off-takers are not responsible for sites, for construction, for operations, for maintenance, or for decommissioning. Those are all taken care of by either the developer or the investment company that the developer sells the array to. If we could just jump ahead one more. So what's net metering? Net metering, in a nutshell, runs the gamut from just individual houses all the way up to 500 kilowatt arrays, which cover about 3 acres. And I'm sure you're familiar with them because they're all over the place. Solar is net metered when the owner of an array is paid by the electric company for excess electricity that's exported to the grid when it's not needed by whatever the load is that where it initially was produced. Next slide. We say virtual because the off-takers are not necessarily in the same place as the array. The array could be half the state away, as long as it's in the same utility territory. And I'll give you an example of that in a moment. And it's group net metering because there can be multiple off-takers. And so, for example, there's an array that I developed in Pownell, way down in the southeastern corner of the state. which produces net metering credits that are used by Mount Snow, which are in the middle of the state. There's an array in Guilford down on the southern border of Vermont, which provides net metering credits to the village of Bellows Falls in Rockingham, Twin Valley Elementary School in Wilmington, and then 10 individuals all over the state, as long as they're in GMP territory. So that's how we can talk about group net metering and virtual net metering. Group net metering is optimal if you have no roof or land suitable for an array. You might just not. Or if you're local, you might have a site, but your local electric grid may be congested. In other words, the substations and the feeders, the electric power lines, just can't take any more production because they're sort of maxed out. They're transporting the most amount of electricity that they can transport, and they can't take any more. So that's congestion. Or if you do not plan to invest in, build, and own a solar array in the near future, and I can tell you, having gone through all of your electric bills, that there's the potential to enjoy a whole megawatt of net metering capacity, but to actually build that, you probably have to invest $3 or $4 million. So if you don't plan to do that, then you're satisfied with more of a kind of a discounted electric bills arrangement, then net metering makes perfect sense. Or if your organization can't absorb federal tax credits, and that's a whole rabbit hole I don't want to go down, but let's just say this. It's not possible now for school districts to take advantage of federal tax credits. There was a brief period when they could, and previous to that, they couldn't, but it's just not an option at the moment. And so payment for this excess electricity that's exported to the grid is not simply done by paying money back to the source of the electricity, but rather by crediting monetary net metering credits to the off-takers through their electric bills. And what that ends up doing is reducing their electric bills. So it's kind of a triangular relationship. You've got the owner and the operator of the array, you've got the power company, and you've got the off-taker. And money and credits move through that triangle. Next, please. So what is the value of a net metering credit? And what I want to emphasize, it's not a market rate. It's not something that is the result of freely operating markets. It's a rate that's set by the Public Utility Commission. And I'll show you the calculation in just a second. Thank you. Yep. Next one. The net metered power, this addresses a question that often comes up. Net metered arrays feed the local distribution grid. They don't go into the transmission lines. The power is not exported out of state. It stays very local. I mean, it basically, from sort of a physics standpoint, it's used almost exactly where it's actually produced. It might be used by a load center, like a village center or a town or some industry, but the power doesn't leave the state, in that sense. It goes into the local distribution grid. So components of net metering business, just a quick look at the sort of business model. In general, net metering is constructed by investors with tax credit appetites, electricity customers, in other words, people who receive GMP bills and have to pay them, a participating electric utility, which in this case is Green Mountain Power, and federal and state incentives, in other words, the Vermont net metering program, which sets the net metering credit value, and then there's a whole rule. You're welcome to read it if you ever want to. It's, 50 or 60 pages. Rule 5.100 governs how net metering works in the state. You need that whole structure for this to work, and the solar development. So what the off-taker, in other words, in this case, Addison Central, has to pay in order to join a net metering group is zero. There's no upfront fee. Go ahead. And so another question is, where does the net metering credit come from? it comes from a rate that is set by the Public Utility Commission called the blended residential rate. Then there's an adjuster, which depends on the size and the location of the array, and also whether the array is so-called green attributes are sold off to a customer somewhere through a market, or are simply handed over to the power company. It's another question that often comes up too. If you read the fine print in the net metering agreement or Rule 5.100, you see references to green attributes. Nowadays, they just all go to Green Mountain Power. They all just go to GMP, but that affects what that adjuster is in the calculation. So it's basically the blended residential electric rate minus the adjuster times the electricity produced by the array, and that gives you the total credit in a month that will go to whichever off-takers are signed up as part of the group. Next, please. So up until very recently, and I think in the case of the opportunity being offered to your district, still, the blended net metering, or the blended residential rate is 18.398 cents per kilowatt hour, and minus that adjuster, and then times, and this just happens to be a typical high school that I picked. There's a certain consumption per month at this particular high school that's in the range of 42,000 kilowatt hours per month, and you get that off your electric bill. Gives you the value of the total credit that the power company gives to the electric bill balances of the off-takers for that particular month. We can come back to that if there are questions. It used to be that the entire electric bill was eligible for offsetting by net meter group production. It's no longer the whole thing, because there are a bunch of things that are called non-bypassable fees, like, for example, an efficiency fee or fees for storm damage. Those don't count anymore. But what do count, and which typically make up 75 to 80% of the bill, are the so-called demand fee, which is a certain number of dollars or cents per kilowatt, and the usage fee, which is the total amount of usage during that month times 14, 15, 16 cents, whatever it might happen to be. And those two things together, the so-called bypassable charges, can be offset by net metering credits. And that ends up being 75, 80% of the bill. One of the things I did when I went through all the electric bills was to pull the useful numbers out of or away from the numbers that I couldn't use for each month, for each school. And so how does this work from an off-taker standpoint? The off-taker buys the credits at a discount. And the discounts that are currently being offered all across the state are 7% for net metering. Used to be a little bit higher, but the value of a net metering credit has been dropping. Again, it's not a market phenomenon, but it's the Public Utility Commission. So 7% is the typical discount. If you go to the next one, this is something I often quote, which is that solar group net metering it's a long-term guaranteed zero risk opportunity to buy dollar bills for 93 cents. And then you use those dollar bills to pay your electric bill. And so your electric bill will be 7 or 8% lower than it would ordinarily be. It's a guarantee. And some of you might ask, nothing's guaranteed in life. How could it possibly be guaranteed? So we can discuss that when I finish in just a moment. We're asking for a 20-year commitment. That seems like a long time. There was some legislation passed last year allowing schools to engage in 20-year commitments to energy services companies for performance contracting, and also net metered solar. We can talk about whether 20 years is good or bad, but that's what we're asking for. Next slide. The actual utility savings so the largest array you can build for net metering is a 500 kilowatt array. And that's, like I said, on about 3 acres of land. The schools, though, a school or a school district can sign up for a full megawatt. There was some legislation changed in 2019 that made that possible. And so you would basically be able to use the output of 2 500 kilowatt arrays. And I'm working with a developer that has that capacity. It's not filled, it hasn't been taken yet by anybody else. And so one of those 500 kilowatt arrays under current circumstances would lead to about $9,500 in annual electric savings. But remember, you're eligible for 2 because you have so much appetite. In fact, you could use more than 2 arrays. So we'd have to just basically give you the maximum possible, realizing it's slightly less than than your total appetite. And so Addison Central would actually be saving more like $19,000 or $20,000 a year in electric bills. And then next slide. That's just for one array, and it's actually a little bit more than that. I just multiplied the first year savings times 20. But the electric rate rises, so it's actually going to be more money over a 20-year period. That's just a couple of quick things about net metering, which is when it was enacted, Rule 5.100. We can pass that, but it's there for your reference. And then just some other interesting stats. Around the state now, there's about 500 megawatts of total installed solar. Total installed group net metered solar is a significant chunk of that, 200 megawatts, mostly schools and hospitals, and municipalities, waste districts, and so forth. The total number of larger group net metered arrays is about 350. There are thousands if you include the smaller residential and small business ones. And the maximum group net metered array that you can be part of is 500 kilowatts. So that's it, I think, for the slides. And I just wanted to add one more thing to this, which is back in 2010, when I was still working in academia, I worked for Marlborough College down in Marlborough in their graduate program. I was asked by a solar developer, like a freelance guy, to work on a project with him that was funded by something called the Clean Energy Development Fund, which the state operates, to look at the feasibility and look at the necessary components of a business model to make group net metering work. And I had no idea at that point that years later I'd be actually working in this field. But so we got a team together of some lawyers from Vermont Law School, myself and a student from our MBA program, and a guy named Dan Ingold himself providing the technical expertise. And we put together sort of the business model of how to set up group net metering in Vermont. And at that point, nobody had really done it. But once that had been put in place, the next thing that happened was that a guy at the Superintendent's Association named Norm Etkin, who at the time ran something called the School Energy Management Program, SEMP. He took what we had created, plus input from other people, and he worked with a lawyer at a firm called Gravel and Shea, a guy named Ethan McLaughlin, to come up with the first net metering agreement. So the net metering agreement that I'm asking you to review and approve is really just a further development without a whole lot of changes of the net metering agreement template that Norm Etkin and Ethan McLaughlin cooked up in like 2012, 2013, with schools specifically in mind. So, it's not an afterthought or an aberration that, I'd be approaching a school district. Net metering was constructed in order to make solar available to schools, to municipalities, and to nonprofit organizations that normally would not be able to get into commercial solar on that kind of scale. So anyway, this is just a bit of history. I'm going to stop and invite any questions or comments that folks have.
So at this point, board members, we have, I think, 30 minutes for this on our agenda. We're about 20 minutes into it, and we have a big agenda tonight. I think we're right around 3 hours. So I think we'll do 10 to 15 minutes or so with questions, and then if people have follow-up throughout, we'll certainly be in touch. And I think the more we can understand and evaluate this, I think Wendy did a good job laying out our role in this. So, yeah, Mary Heather.
You mentioned, and I think it was slide 22, Jason, just how the credit is calculated. And you mentioned a couple of factors that go into that calculation, the blended residential electricity rate and the Vermont net median adjuster. I'm curious the extent to which those variables change over time. And if so, how frequently, how much, the degree, just to get a sense of how vulnerable this calculation is to change over time.
Yeah, they are actually mandated to change every 2 years. The Public Utility Commission, according to the net metering law, has to do an evaluation and then an adjustment every 2 years.
Mhm.
What I forgot to mention, which is really important, is that the arrays for which we're looking for off-takers right now already have their certificates of public good. They're already fully permitted, and they're either built or in construction. And so the net metering credit value that they enjoy is actually different from what's in place as of August 1st of this year. They are grandfathered into a slightly different net metering credit value. And I'm not even sure, I haven't been really focusing much on the latest net metering credit value because I'm not working on anything that's affected by it, which is why I used 18.398 cents. But let's just say that what I'm proposing for you is based on grandfathered, already
Existing arrays.
existing and permitted projects. Yeah.
Okay.
But you can expect the net metering credit, or the blended rate rather, to be adjusted every 2 years.
And what direction are they to adjust?
They go up slightly because they try to keep pace with rising electric rates.
Thank you.
Oh, but what differs is that the adjusters get bigger, which is the Public Utility Commission's way of sort of keeping things unchangeable. The value goes up, but the adjuster gets big too, so the net is about the same.
Yeah, we are a solar producer, I guess you would say. In 2015, we put solar on our house.
Oh,
At the time, our electricity bill dropped to 0. And 2 years later, it went up to 7, and then 15, and now we're paying 35 every single time this 2 years happens. We end up paying more, and Green Mountain Power seems to be getting more out of this. So,
but you own the array.
so what?
You own the array.
Yes,
That's
Yeah.
different.
I understand. Green Mountain Power and the Utilities Commission changed those, and frankly, they changed them rather arbitrarily and never to the benefit of people that are on either end, mostly to Green Mountain Power's benefit. How does this protect us from the adjustments that happen? You say that it's grandfathered, but that adjuster is not grandfathered for 20 years.
No, and after 10 years, there's a relaxation. Have to look at that more closely, but I guess the basic difference is that in your case, you own the array, so you're a producer, and there are also tax benefits for you, but it's a whole completely different business model. In what I'm proposing, there's simply an opportunity to buy credits at a discount. And if the price of electricity goes up or down, it doesn't matter. You can still buy the credits at a discount. So you're going to be saving a little bit, but in a very dependable way, regardless of what electric rates do.
Well, your slide here says 7% of net metering credits that is typically kept by off-takers. And you're saying that has stayed stable over the last 10 years?
No,
Because I think it's gone, it's gone not in favor of the person doing the net metering.
Well, what's happened is that the blended rate and the adjusters have changed and they've gradually increased. And so people's electric bills have changed, but they're still entitled to the same, in this case, 7 or 8 or whatever % discount. So you're always eligible for the discount, whatever's happening in the other numbers. That's why we don't worry about electric rates too much, because this is not a focus. This is not a discounted rate. It's a discounted credit. That makes sense.
I saw Ron and then Jason. Go for it, Ron. And Jason, if there's any hands online, please let me know.
Two quick questions. What happens if ACSD stops being a district? And secondly, I wonder if you could provide us with a list of other school districts that are using the group net metering program, so we can kind of reach out and hear what their experience has been.
Sure. And I recommend that too. There are many schools and supervisory unions that have used net metering, and they all have their own experiences, and they're worth connecting with. I'll give you some examples. But I'm sorry, the first question was,
what happens if ACSD stops being
yes.
ACSD?
So there's a section 12 in the net metering agreement. In fact, section 12B, which talks about assignment. And it basically says that if external circumstances cause a reduction in load, in other words, a reduction in demand all the way down to 0, it's not specific. But if the demand of the off-taker suddenly drops, basically the owner of the array and the off-taker will together in good faith go out and find a replacement off-taker. That's it. And some people worry, what if we close a school or we merge districts or something happens and the load goes from this much to this much? Who's responsible for that? Well, it's something that, in practical terms, the owner of the array, which will either be a developer or an investment company, will just have to go out and find another off-taker. And they'll, hopefully call me, because I do that, and basically find replacement load for the load that's disappeared. And I haven't actually heard of this happening yet anywhere, but I'm sure it has. And then examples. There are tons of examples. I mean, for example, my kids all have gone or are going to the Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union schools, all net metered. All the schools around White River Junction and Hartford and Woodstock, all net metered. Harwood up this way uses net metering heavily. As long as it's it's mostly in GMP territory, which provides, I think, about 70% of the electricity that the state consumes. There must be examples in WEC and Vermont Electric Cooperative and so forth as well. Interestingly enough, Addison Northwest does not use net metering at the moment, but I'm talking with them as well. And there would be enough capacity to accommodate both Addison Central and Addison Northwest. I was the developer that I'm working for with the arrays that I have intended to propose to them and to you and to Wyndham or to Addison Northwest. I was surprised that there were still a few school districts out there that had not gone with net metering, because almost all have. And when the developer, somebody called Norwich Solar Technology, called me up, I started calling all the school districts in the state, and I did. I called all around, and so I actually have a record of who's net metered and who isn't, and the vast majority are. So, for example, I think what is the district over in Bristol, Mount Abraham?
Mount Abraham.
Yeah, I think they use net metering pretty extensively.
Thank you.
And other things, if it is the board's wish that we compile information and a recommendation, all of that would be something that we would look into, obviously, to come back to.
Jason.
So this seems like free money. So what's the catch?
So it's free money because the legislature created a structure, and net metering is used in about 35 states. So there are lots of examples of this. But the legislature used it as a way to stimulate distributed investment in solar, not gigantic mega projects, but rather small-ish projects around the state. that would lend themselves to offsetting the electric use of schools, towns, and nonprofits and hospitals and so forth, not just commercial customers. And so, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? An incentive was built in, and that's and to attract off-takers and to attract developers. And the incentive for the off-takers is the net metering credit discount. So it's not really free money, it's just a diversion of money that the legislature caused to happen by creating the legislation.
The array, whoever owns the array gets the full credit, and they give us the credit at a small discount
Right.
in return for what?
I mean, you get the credits at a discount in return for reducing your electric bill.
No, but what do they get in return?
Well, they have to build the array, and they have to pay the landlord for, to lease the land, and they've got to pay taxes, and they've got to, amortize the debt and so forth on the array itself. And, solar development is it's not a big, bonanza kind of investment. It's a very steady investment that lasts a long time. And developers have created a business model that balances different interests, but makes it possible for them to build arrays at a profit and still, pay the off-takers, pay the other stakeholders in the project. But there was one other thing that you made me think about, which was what happens if something terrible happens to the array and it stops producing? What then? How does that affect you? And my answer is, first of all, there'll be a bank in the background and some investors who will want to see that array up and running again ASAP to cover the operating costs. So the interests of all of those parties are aligned with the off-takers. The only thing the off-takers will see is that the credits will suddenly disappear from their electric bills until the array is producing again. So the only thing that happens is your electric bill just goes back to normal until the array is fixed, and then you begin to accumulate credits again.
So in return for the 20-year commitment, we get a little bit of free money.
Yes. But you can also feel good about the fact that about 75 to 80% of your electric load here is offset by an array that's relatively close, somewhere in the vicinity. And it might be across the state, or it might be very close to you, but it's still a locally produced clean energy.
If we're tied to a specific array, if it produces less over time, does that decrease that percentage over time as well?
Yeah, there's a built-in consideration for reduced production, but it actually drops fairly slowly, and you'll see in the net metering agreement language that it's a 20-year agreement, but there are options to extend it 5 years at a time, all the way out to, I think, 35 to 40 years. And even at like 25 or 30 years, the array is still going to be producing about 80% of its original capacity. So it's a very gradual degradation. I think we use 0.4% per year degradation.
And you're hoping to put ACSD on a brand new array?
Yeah, and I was actually thinking I need to call the folks at Norwich and find out where. There's one array that could be the one in Putney, Vermont. There's another one that's either in Thetford or Bradford, but I can find out specifically.
All right, well, is there any other questions? All right, I think we'll move on from there. Thank you very much, Ralph.
Yeah, thank you so much. And any questions, don't hesitate to contact me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And I didn't see your email in the presentation, so just as long as we all have that, which I'm sure find somewhere.
I can send some cards around.
I'll take
anybody
one
grab
because
a
I'll
card?
just report it in the minutes.
Yeah. Get very good at when it can be.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. And I'll just put these here if anybody else would like to grab one. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right, So next on our agenda is the report of the superintendent, and we have a couple of items in there. There are the personnel appointments, resignations, and retirements. There's a busing update, draft superintendent goals, legislative update, and then other space. So I'm turn that over to you, Wendy.
Sure. Just to respect Darren's time, part of the busing update is just to let you know, in respect to the concern that you brought forward, that we have always intended to have supervision at Shoreham, and we do have supervision at Shoreham, so that's not a concern. What's a concern to me is that Darren, whose family is of great service in the town of Shoreham, doesn't know that we have supervision. So I will take care of that, and make sure that Jenny sends communication out. But it may even be a superstar that everyone knows. So more to come on that. But rest assured, there will be supervision there. And when we transitioned Ripton students to Salisbury, transportation was the trickiest thing. And so we started out with, okay, here's our plan, and then we kind of worked with parents and figured out what makes sense now and what does that look like, and we'll continue to do that, as we're supporting the transition of students in Shoreham to learn in Bridport, So we'll update that, and I'll make sure that Jenny reaches out. So thank you, Darren, for just taking the time to come. I knew you were going to be heading out shortly.
I appreciate that.
Want to make sure you're here when I said that. So we'll return to transportation. We have other challenges that I need to make sure that you're aware of, but let's go through personnel appointments, resignations, and retirements. You will see that we have a couple of paraeducators here. We are in the process of hiring those positions as we always are this time of year, and I think we probably need 6 or 7 more, Nellie, generally speaking. So we will continue to do that. So I'll have more that I'll bring to you in September. Those folks always start right away, with the understanding that you will likely approve their appointment, and if not, we'll work that out. So those are there for your approval.
I move that we accept the appointment of Veronica Quintanilla and Linda Smith as paraprofessionals 1.0 FTE.
All right. Is there any discussion of the motion? All right. At this point, we will vote on the motion. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. And any abstentions?
One abstention for myself.
One abstention as well.
Okay, so other busing information.
Before we dive into the busing update, kind of to tag onto the busing update, I do want to say I've had conversations with Wendy ahead of this meeting about some of the busing conversations. And I will say, knowing how close we are to the start of the school, I think I probably share some of Wendy's frustration of this, and not more just that from what I've understood, and I don't think I understand near as much as Wendy does or others in the room, but I feel like it would have been helpful to understand from some of our partners earlier some of the things we faced. And it's frustrating that we start school, some of the 6th grade students and others tomorrow, and then the next day we are going to go live. So that is not much time to figure out issues that I think we probably should have had a heads up from some of our partners earlier. So I just want to say that from my perspective on the board, I'm not sure what Wendy has to say, but I just wanted to share that kind of aspect of this conversation with everyone.
Yeah, so, as I just indicated in the spotlight, we, last week, we were, settled, informed on the routes as is normal course of action, from Betcha, who's our partner, and working obviously in good faith. And then very late in the middle of the week, informed that we were going to be down a significant number of bus drivers of the 19 that we routes that we have. And so much so that Matt and I spent all day Thursday. I'm not sure if you actually did anything else. I didn't. And a great deal of the day on Friday trying to determine which kids we were not going to pick up. Which I can tell you, no superintendent wishes to be in that position in any circumstance. So Matt is doing an excellent job working with the folks at Betcha to try to help them to think of new ideas, ways to collapse routes, think about how we can make sure that everybody has a ride to school in the best way that we can. And we, at the end of that good work, we ended up with one route that I decided not to cover, and based on the transportation policy that you have, which is C3, that I'm guessing a policy committee, certainly at my suggestion, will want to have a little bit more conversation around, because I'm not sure that we've been in a driver shortage for a while. I'm not sure we're coming out of a driver shortage. And so I think having a stronger policy support as to how to face some of the circumstances that we faced last week would be helpful. So in the transportation policy that you have, it indicates that it's all the superintendent's decision how buses are taken care of. And that age and health of the pupils is really, the thing that we take into account, as well as distance to be traveled, condition of road traveled, and type of highway. So Matt and I worked out a circumstance where we prioritize the youngest students first, and anybody with, any health needs that we were aware of, although those are typically taken care of in another way. And distance to be traveled, which certainly meant that any students coming from a town that is not learning in their town is automatically bused in that respect, because they are generally automatically, there are students on that route that live farther away than other students do. We prioritize our elementary and then our middle and then our high school students. The route that is not currently covered and impacts our families in Hancock, Granville, and Rochester, which was a decision that was based on the fact that students within ACSD boundaries, remember, students need to get to school by law, right? Even though we don't have to provide transportation by law, they need to attend school. And students within our district, these are the only schools they get to attend. Students from tuitioning towns do have other options. So my decision was to pick up students from Hancock, Granville, and Rochester at the Ripton Community House. And work on us being able to do that there, which we are very optimistic about being able to do. There are about 40 students that are on that run from 6th through 12th grade. And we, between the busing capacity, vans that we have, and people from the high school and others who have stepped up to drive vans with students, we are very optimistic that we will be able to get everybody down the hill to school. So we've engaged, we sent communication to families on Friday. As you can imagine, great deal of unrest and disappointment in those families, absolutely understandably so. Matt has continued to work with the transportation company, and I've been on the phone with Jamie, their superintendent in White River Valley, who is also getting communication from families, around what can be done. And we've escalated the matter to the regional management, and I finished with Senator Hardy on my way over here, on the phone. So we are doing everything we can to try to ensure that this scenario gets the attention it deserves, because it does not feel okay. There are certainly ways in which we can engage our transportation company relative to our contract and our business functions, and we will do so as needed. But kids, we need to get kids through the door here quickly, and that's what our primary focus is on right now. So I'm hopeful that some of the pieces that folks are really working hard to try to assist with, we reached out to Tri-Valley, and they're not able to help, unfortunately. So we're working on all the things that we can, and that's something we'll shake loose by mid-morning tomorrow. Otherwise, we will be in communication with those families again and see where we are. Senator already has asked to be on that communication, as has Jamie, their superintendent. So we're working together to try to resolve the situation, but it is more than disappointing, I will say. So I really appreciate Matt's efforts in trying to pull together 16 ways to combine 19 routes into fewer than that, and Weybridge will be served by one bus rather than two. They do happen to have a playbook for that that allows everybody to be picked up, even though the times are a little bit adjusted. So that's not the same situation as our Hancock, Granville, and Rochester families. So I just wanted to make sure you were apprised of that, had a chance to ask any questions that you might, and I will let you know when the situation is resolved as soon as we have a resolution.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say you reached out to Tri-Valley?
Yes.
Transit?
Correct. Yeah, we gave them the route that needs assistance, and they could not help. The most optimistic solution at the moment is that one of the transportation routes that serves the White Valley School District, their hub is the Williamstown hub. Perhaps one of those drivers could extend their work such that they can at least pick up students in those three towns and bring them to the Ripton Community House. So that I'm most hopeful about that moment. I don't know whether that will pan out, but those are the kinds of things that we're working on.
Yeah, I've been on the school board too long. This isn't just disappointing, it's infuriating. When SDA bought Vetcha, they assured us that this would not happen. They also doubled our contract from $2 million to $4 million. And we got raked over the coals, if I can use a polite term, at that moment. And now here we are, not getting the service that we contracted for. There's got to be a lawsuit in here somewhere. I don't want to take the board's time, but that's infuriating.
I understand.
Robin?
So the link in your email brings us to the RFP, not the policy. And so I'm looking at it, and there's a lot of language in here about fiscal penalties.
Mm-hmm.
Are we leveraging all of those, like, to the best of our ability? Like, to your point, Steve, like, there's a lot of like it pretty much spec by spec. So
I really love that error took place. Sometimes big companies buy smaller companies, right? And things happen. Also, these are all waivers, right? So as hard as it is, we're trying to work, in partnership and in good faith. However, you can rest assured that we are not the only district covered by that contract that is impacted. And also that, these are very serious conversations, and, we are taking them as such. You can have confidence in that.
And just to follow up on that observation and comment, I know this is something that we dealt with last year or the year before when we had many driver absences, and I do believe Matt had to go to bat for changing a little bit the amount of money that we paid per that contract because services were not provided as indicated. So we've done it before. I'm sure it will be done again.
We don't expect that to be in dispute. The real challenge is we need to get kids to school,
right?
And so the finances will take care of themselves. I believe it's hard when families say I can't get my kid to school, and you feel like you need to help and you are powerless to do so. That is not a position that I relish. So
That makes perfect sense. One of the benefits of big companies is they can pay bills and they don't like paying out, and that is often motivating to them. So.
we are proceeding with that in mind. Yeah.
Jason.
How many students and families are affected?
There are 40 students in Granville, Hancock, and Rochester altogether. Approximately 15 of them at Mums and the remainder at the high school, that doesn't mean there are 40 families, but there are approximately 40 students. And so at this moment, all of them are inconvenienced to have to come to the Ripton Community House. And we have let them know that we are making every effort to get each of them down the hill where they need to go on time, but also that we need to, we are working that out. It's the ridership on any transportation is always highest at the very beginning of the school year. And so right now it's a little bit unknown how many kids would be driving anyway, how many of them are now going to be carpooling that wouldn't have been carpooling before. And so we will know just as the Shoreham, supervision and hub and what we really do in the end will work itself out once we have some days underneath us. This will also. So we're just trying to plan with as wide a net as we can. Okay.
Laura.
I just want to maybe add a little context that we are far from the only district having issues finding bus drivers. That's I think a nationwide problem, is that there just aren't enough bus drivers out there. Not, trying to make any excuses for any contract issues, but just wanted to put that out there.
I think that's true. I think the feedback that obviously we've given Betcha is that we need to know what they know when they know it, and that is what we need in order to be able to operate effectively. And in this case, that's an area of our relationship that we'd like to see be different as we're moving ahead. So they understand that and certainly have pressures in their industry. Any other questions?
Ron?
In the unfortunate circumstance that some families decide that, without bus transportation, they're not going to be sending their kids to ACSD, and those are tuition paying students, might that affect the district's finances in other ways?
If the district loses revenue relative to routes not being provided, I imagine the contract speaks very clearly to how to mitigate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on busing or thoughts? Right, we can move on.
I'm sorry to have to bring you that update. And I'm appreciative of the team's efforts to try to find a way, all the high school staff, people are really, as we do, really trying to come together around supporting kids and I will, as I said, keep you apprised. So you have in your materials and whatnot, some goal work. And this, does anybody need a paper copy of that?
Can we put them on?
Say that again.
Can we put them on the screen?
You can put them on the screen. They're in the board materials as well. So, the superintendent's goals really are the goals of this very talented team and all, building leaders and so on and so forth. And they flow from the board's goals, in terms of what is the work that we're doing together, which all flows from the strategic plan, as an anchoring point. So given that your board goals were finalized on the 20th, then, we went to work to pull the work that we've talked about together. There's nothing in this document that is new, that is something that you, with Abby's exception, as she's catching up, haven't seen or heard about already. It's really kind of putting the work my direct work and the work of the folks that I am privileged to guide into three areas. One is continuing to move us ahead in positive organizational culture development, and part of that is the way we work, and then part of it is just being able to put my own leadership presence where it needs to be, which, as I've said to you, I really am going to carve very intentional time aside to be able to be alongside teachers and students as they're doing the work that we're doing. And I think we're at a good place for me to be able to do that. Principals know how to find me and reach me. We have well-established routines like that, and so that my time in the building can be dedicated to really seeing where they are and allowing them to feel celebration in their work, particularly as they're trying really new things at different ways of being in their work. So you'll see that. The second focus area you'll see we've talked about just relative to providing effective leadership as we are moving through Act 170 in that educational transformation, which is providing effective guidance in this forum without making decisions for you or without overly influencing you in decisions, but to make sure that you have the information and the experiences that would best serve the communities so that you can process information well. And then also, as functioning as the co-chair of our Champlain Valley South CISA, and thinking about how the district, and others around us can be best served by thinking about scaling up some of our best work in ways that are operationally reasonable, and in supporting the voluntary merger process, which is board led, but obviously, there's going to be things that our team is going to need to be providing support for. So making room for that, guiding that, and listening to what you need and pulling those things together. The third focus area relates to intentional district-wide data use that improves the student experience. And some of that is in working as I have, for example, in last week with nurses, social workers, and school counselors to help engage them in, all right, what is the important data that we either need to create or capture that relates to well-being, student well-being? You know it, you live it. What is it that we should be talking about? Because, we have some ways to go about that are much more capable than we have. And also supporting, Courtney and the instructional staff to use different assessments, think about data, just determine how do we use multiple points of data in making good decisions and assumptions related to the work that we're doing and its effectiveness, and ensuring that reports that you have are timely, accurate, and informative, so that you have the information you need, both about how decisions you've made are going, but also how we're doing relative to the metrics that you have in the strategic plan or the student outcomes committee has in mind. So those are sort of the three main areas, and the work that is here, it looks a little different than last year because it moves us into preparing steps that are also preparing us for the next year, because we're never working in just 1 year alone. We're always evaluating what we did last year. We're in where we are now, and we're thinking about where we're going, which is never more true than in budget season. But, it's also true in large scale leadership work. So questions or thoughts or observations or feedback for me at the moment? This is dynamic work, so it's going to be shifting and changing as we keep moving through it.
If we have a chance to digest this and we have some questions later on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. This is really just to make sure that we're moving the conversation forward in important ways. Anything for tonight?
I guess I have one question. I'm not sure how to ask this, but under preparatory action steps for 27, 28, did you see that? right above focus area 3.
Yeah.
So support the board's effective supervision of voluntary merger process. Like, what is your role there? Like, are you advocating for our district in some way, or is it more like, look, stuff has to get done and I'm participating in it? Is there like, I'm trying to draw a distinction between those kind of things. Like, and I don't have a stake really in it, but I'm just curious, like what kinds of, how that participation relates to like advocating for the students and whatever staff that we have.
Yeah. And I'll answer that with the CISA in mind and also the voluntary merger process, because I see my role very differently in both of those two things. So relative to the CISA, its formation and its development, which is, as an agency that is developing sort of shared services that could be managed perhaps more efficiently or more effectively delivered at scale. My role there is to advocate for our district and our students, and to work collaboratively with other board members to build something that is going to be in our best interest. That is going to use our funds well, that is a service that we would wish to purchase, or that is, we are not absorbing costs that don't improve what we're doing or lead to efficiencies as we go, but also to help us to brainstorm what that might be. My role, and anyone who reports to me, this role in the voluntary merger process, is to first put together information and reports. You will have a committee that will be engaged in this kind of work, so we will be supporting you to make sure that you are fully aware of the foundation formula conversations, the differences that we are seeing based on school district contracts, all the things that come up. We will need to analyze that information, and we will need to present you with, this is what we believe we understand, and this is what you should know. These are all the pros, perhaps, of what is about to be discussed, and these are the worries that we might have, or the concerns that we want to make sure you're aware of as you are thinking about how best to shepherd the district's participation in the process. I don't think it is our job to overly influence you as to whether or not you should advocate for a voluntary merger. That's up to you. Just as Act 46 was up to boards, right? Operations staff provided information and said, here's what that looks like. However, that's up to you and the communities that have elected you to serve them in that way. So you can count on us not to do that. We will not withhold a worry or concern, and we will ensure that you're understanding the pluses in what you're doing and what you might be doing, and also perhaps the hidden opportunities that might not have come up yet that could be possible. So we will try to make sure that you are prepared 360 degrees around any topic that we see that you are going to be engaged in. We will be lobbying it at the legislative level to ensure that that decisions that are coming through the legislative process, particularly that relate to the foundation formula, are based in fact, have students' well-being at their bottom line, and do not get lost in the political process to the extent that that the funding formula that comes out the other side of that, should there be one, is harmful to students without us being very transparent about that. So we will be advocating for our students in alongside also other statewide leaders relating to that. Does that help?
Very much, thank you.
Yeah, and we work for you. So, at all times, we are here to serve, primarily the students of ACSD. All Vermont kids are our kids, right? I think that's one of the beautiful things about this state. But, we will be supporting you in whatever way we can.
Thank you.
Any other questions or observations for the moment? Happy to come around again in September. Otherwise, we will carry on. So, Okay, so then the last part of the superintendent's report is a legislative update, and this actually will tie into the chair's report. In that this is not anything to do with legislative activity, but you likely remember that Dave Younce has been chosen to be the lead facilitator for the facilitators of the voluntary merger process. So Dave has begun to get to work. The ads for 7 other facilitators for those regions are out, and he has started to communicate with superintendents and through the Vermont School Boards Association. You probably got information from him if you've checked your email. And he is asking a few things and giving some updates, and I just want to share them for you and perhaps for just the public record. One of them is that he's asking that either I or the board chair completes a survey relative to who our chosen person is, so that it's going to be the point person, at least for now, for this work. And other facts about our district, but also this to keep in mind for Steve's conversation, anything else we would wish him to know. So I'm happy to do that communication, given that Steve is otherwise employed, right? So I'm happy to pass that along, but that is something that's a to-do that we really do need to do. He plans to communicate with board chairs and superintendents each Friday afternoon. So I will ensure that communication loop is going to everyone. I'll probably put it in the spotlight so that you don't miss something, and that also our organization understands. Has a level of transparency around the timing. One of the things that he points out is that the 7 facilitators need to be in place by September 1st. It is getting close to that. He will be delivering training with this facilitator team throughout the month of September. And once those topics are finalized, he'll share that information. Again, part of that effective leadership is like gathering that, making sure you have an understanding of those pieces, as we go. There may be some duplication in communication if you're getting some things from others as well. So we'll sort that out, as we need to. He anticipates that by mid-September, he will have assigned facilitators to regions. Likely between September 15th and October 1st, your regional facilitator will begin communicating with the merger study group board designees and superintendents to coordinate the merger studies group first meeting date, time, and location. The first study group meeting will very likely be similar to an organizational meeting of a committee or board. You should not expect much more to come out of that first gathering, as it will take time to work through meeting and organizational details. Then he talks about time, and this is probably important context setting. Act 170 facilitation, he writes, operates on an aggressive schedule and limited budget. Please be aware that our regional facilitators will be managing between 2 to 4 groups, each depending on their assigned region. His estimates are that each facilitator will have roughly 80 hours of time available for each individual merger study group. That includes time in actual facilitation, planning, and any meetings that include preparing for or debriefing from the work over the span from roughly October to June, which is a 9-month period of time. So 80 hours over 9 months is approximately 10 hours a month in order to accomplish all of this work, that's not a lot from the consulting perspective. So it will be interesting to see how those gaps are filled and how that work evolves. This Friday, he will be sending a communication relative to the regional hiring process. And he wants you to know that he is working in close collaboration with the AOE to put together a visual that outlines the following information in one place: Act 170 statutory timelines, study group areas of focus, and anticipated timing of tactical assistance and tools provided by the AOE, which will be another party that is engaging in this process. So more to come. And, my assumptions about how our team can best support the board is to ensure that we have clear information in a timely way and is communicated well, so that you can be where you need to be, read what you need to read, and ask people that you know that in the areas that you're serving, the things that you need to get their feedback around, in timely ways. So that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, is there any questions before we move on?
We are excited to welcome kids on Wednesday, and I think they're excited to be with us. So.
All right, thank you for all of that, Wendy. So our next order of business is agenda item H, which is the report of the board chair. As Wendy said, and it ties in well to this first conversation, is we need to figure out our representation on the voluntary merger committee. If you remember at our last meeting, I asked people that were interested in doing that work to send their name to me and the executive committee. As I understand it, there are 3 people that are interested in this opportunity. I got an email from Steve Orzich, from James, and Jason also let us know that he was interested. My thought on navigating this is that we will do the same thing we have done for voting on members of this board, and that we will take a roll call vote. We will vote on all 3 people first. The first 2 vote getters, or the highest 2 vote getters, we will then have a second vote and vote again on those individuals. That is what I am thinking. I believe, but I certainly don't know, there will be other opportunities for participation down the road. And I suspect we may have other board members that need to assist in this work. It seemed kind of like Matt had heard some stuff about this, but whether that proves true or not, I think we'll have to see kind of where everything ends up. I would not underestimate the time that this may take. Wendy just touched on that, and I think it is going to be a commitment. I honestly worry about how we as a board function and complete and get done what we need to do, while also making sure that we can be represented well in a whole nother conversation, and balancing all of that with the lives that we have outside of this service that we do. So is there anyone else that is interested in filling this role? Did I miss anyone? Did I miss an email or anything like that? All right. Is there any questions about this role or about the process we are going to use to fill this role? Any concerns?
I did have one about the composition of the committee. Have they said anything about that yet? About additional representation from our district, because if it's a voting committee, we should have more votes than Lincoln does. Just to use an example.
I think, there are 2 things at play. One is that, remember, boards right now can be also entertaining, as you could, whether you wanted to request that you join a different group. So we don't know the extent to which boards have that mindset. So that's something that's in play. And then there are working groups that are working out representation. I think what you're deciding on right now is somebody that is going to begin this process. And I suppose if all the boards only have one, then that's the only person that gets to vote on anything relating to that before it comes back as a whole. But I would be very comfortable betting that that will not be the case.
So it's possible that all three of us may need it.
It's very possible that all three of you, or that three others or more of you, I think there will be plenty of work to go around. Yes, yeah.
Mary Heather.
Yeah, just want to follow up on that. The information that you're wondering about is actually in the webinar that was shared, the recording that was shared. So I'd encourage you to spend time just looking at that. They're still in the process of basically figuring that out and the wait for votes for different districts and things like that. This is just to identify our first person to help decide when meetings will be, that sort of thing. So I would expect all three, perhaps more, from our board will be necessary. So, yeah.
Steve, can you restate the names? I just didn't hear them super clearly. So I just want to make sure I was thinking of the right folks or the people who you said.
Yeah, so there's interest from Steve Orzich, James Clark, and Jason Chance.
Thanks.
Got it. All right. Is there any questions about the process we're going to use? Yeah.
Yeah, so we vote on, I don't understand the process. So
Yep.
I don't think I was here for the last 3 person vote. I think I was a votee.
Yep. So what we have done previously, just because we were trying to figure out how best to do this, and I think what we came to was that in the first round of voting, all three options will be on the
Do
table.
you choose your top one?
Each individual gets one vote. From that first round, the top 2 vote getters then move to the second round. We go around the room again. Each board member gets one vote, and then the top vote getter from that second round is the person that will be on the voluntary merger committee. Any other questions, concerns?
What, are we just going straight to vote or are we gonna?
What's the campaign?
Well, not campaign. I'm still relatively new. Like, I guess I don't know necessarily, like, does perspective even matter, or are you just physically there to raise a hand? Like, I guess. Yeah.
I did not tell
Sorry.
anyone that is interested in filling this role to come prepared with a statement of their interest in it.
Just kinda
I
feels
think
like
if
Jim
that's something that people are interested in, we could certainly give folks the opportunity. I want to be clear. I did
Yeah,
not
okay.
establish that expectation with the people that communicated
No,
this.
I don't want to add like complications to it. It feels kind of.
I don't think it's a complication. I think if it's productive to make a good decision.
I agree with her. As somebody new to the board, I don't know them well enough to make a confident decision.
Is there concerns from the individuals that are interested in doing that with sharing a statement about your interest in doing this role?
No, it's not gonna be polished, but I'll be happy to do it.
So I see a willingness on everybody's end. Are board members all right with that? Does that feel like a good process? All right, see nods. I don't know how to figure out who goes first now. Is there anyone who's willing to volunteer? James.
Thank you very much, sir. I put my name in just to make sure somebody put their name in. That is entirely the reason. I am an analyst by trade. If you want to use me to do the brunt of going through information and picking out what's pertinent for you, I'm happy to do that. I don't need to be the representative. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't trying to find somebody this week if nobody put their name. So set yourselves a vote, go with 2 names. I'll play second fiddle.
Thank you. Jason or Steve?
I was interested because I've got a long history in the district. Also, I was a teacher at Virgins, so I know a lot of people over there too. And the one advantage that I probably have over both the other gentlemen is I'm retired. I have an amount of time and flexibility available, so Yeah, I'm willing to serve, and I think I've got some good skills around my knowledge around both merging and the people that are involved in the other districts. So,
Jason.
Yeah, I am interested because I think this is sort of like this is a critical moment in where Vermont is heading in the educational landscape, and I think I want to be a part of that journey and have some say in how it goes. So I think it's going to be a pretty rough time commitment. And so I do not take that lightly. I want to discuss it with the family and find their tentative support, hesitant support. So that's it. Yeah, I think, yeah, this is my 4th year on the board. And don't hold me to this, but my plan was to run for another term at the end of this term. So my goal is to be like part of this process, and if it does lead to mergers, like try and be there and see it all the way through next 4 to 5 years. So. Don't tell anybody I said that.
Okay, public TV.
All right. Other questions, comments? All right. James, I will ask you, would you like to be removed from consideration, hearing what you've heard so far?
I'm just here to be part of the process. I do not need to be a representative.
All right.
So
But he's not the
take it
first
down to 2. Yep.
All right. So at this point, we're going to adjust. James is going to be removed from consideration. We have Steve Orzich and Jason Chance that are interested. We will be doing 1 round of voting. Whoever gets the most votes from that will be the representative. There will not be. So does anyone have any questions about how we've adjusted this process or anything? Is everyone clear about the changes? All right. Seeing a lot of head nods. All right.
Ready for me to call?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just let me check in online. Ellen and Laura, did everything come through clear? All right. Thumbs up.
Yes.
All right. All right. So at this point, Mary Heather, I will turn it over to you to call the roll.
Okay,
Proceed.
you were at the top of my list.
All right. Jason.
Jason,
I'll wait for me.
James,
Steve.
Laura,
Steve.
Ron,
Jason.
Jamie.
Jason.
I'll be voting for Jason. Steve.
Steve.
Jess is not present. Ellen.
Jason.
Abby.
Jason.
Robin.
Jason.
And Anne.
Jason.
Okay, Jason is our rep.
All right.
I shall enter it into the official record tomorrow morning. Is there anything else that the board wishes for me to also enter into that for the facilitators in terms of other information that you want the facilitator to know from the board? The question is literally, is there anything else I should know from the perspective of the board?
The one thing that I think we will probably likely get more questions about is just, will there be a mechanism for public participation in this process? And I think the sooner we know that, I think as this kind of picks up speed, there could be more individuals that come to these meetings looking to engage with that process. And if we can understand early, like, is that even a consideration in this process, or is there not public input? into it. And I think if we can understand sooner rather than later what those opportunities might look like, I think that will help us kind of get people directed to those opportunities.
Got it. Anything else? You think of something tonight, I will not be filling this out until I get to here tomorrow morning, so just send me an email and I'll just include it.
All right, next on the agenda is leadership and scope of work for the new finance committee. If you'll recall our conversation last week about bringing the finance and facilities committees together, and part of that is an effort to meet some of the goals that we have laid out for ourselves and to really dive pretty deep on this merger and try to understand it and be able to be accountable to the public and talk about it with authority and knowledge. And so part of that is figuring out who is going to lead that committee. I reached out to Jess. They are not here tonight, but Jess expressed that she is willing to lead that committee. They said that they would also be willing to have others lead it and or I think collaborate some amount on that work. Jason, I know we had previous conversations about some of this, so I don't know if you have opinions or if other board members have thoughts on how best to position this committee to do the work that we need to get it done. Yeah.
My suggestion would be that we let the committee members decide, and Jess is also the chair of the CD committee, so it's an opportunity maybe for someone to step up and either on that committee or on the finance and facilities committee have a leadership role there, and so Jess does not have two committee chairpersons.
Yeah.
But that's my suggestion.
Is there any other thoughts on how we navigate this? I know that committees generally have done that. This is my first time working to bringing together two committees and just wanted to see if there's other perspectives that we should be aware of if people that are not on that committee feel like they would like to be a part of that somehow. I'm not seeing very much concern.
My suggestion would be that James and Abby, we stick around after the meeting and just we'll look at our normal meeting times for the finance and facilities committee and just see if that works, and if it does, great, then we'll just call the first meeting.
All right. Well, unless there's other comments, that ends the report of the board chair. At this point, we will move on to committee and liaison updates. First on the list is the Communications and Engagement Committee. Jess's name is there, but I don't know if anyone on C&E is prepared with an update.
Jamie, what are you going to do? I can if you want.
Go ahead. You have
Well, I'm
their
not
email.
prepared, but I can. It's just tricky.
I can just read it because I found it.
Okay.
Jess emailed us all today saying they can't be here. They said, we are planning to host 4 town halls this school year at Weybridge, Mums, Salisbury, and Shoreham. Weybridge will be happening, I think it's a Weybridge Cornwall one actually, will be happening early October, and Mums will be happening October, November, most likely. We can, they said to please take the opportunity to ask board members for thoughts on agenda items, especially from other committees. And they can email us with ideas they have. In other words, what does the larger board have an interest in that committee sharing with the sort of town hall meetings that we host?
I just add one thing to that, Jamie.
Yeah, sure.
So just to flag, the 4 town halls are going to be, everybody in the district's invited to all of them. They're not going to be localized like they were during the last round. I mean, I think they were probably still open last round, but these are truly meant to be community-wide. For
That
each
was
of
actually
them.
one of the reasons we dropped it down.
That's
Before
true.
was that it didn't feel like there's like one per town.
Where was the fourth one? Weybridge, Mount Salisbury.
Weybridge, Shoreham, yeah.
Are they still being held at school?
That was the plan.
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
Jason, so just a quick question. You guys are gonna have a like specific agenda of topics that you're gonna present on and like entertain questions on, or is it gonna be like open discussion, or what's the thought?
The dramatic preface meeting.
If you think
Yeah. Well, I think the intent is to have it open. We really want to hear from the community and have it be an opportunity to hear back from the community, but we want to bring some items to start a conversation. People are more likely to respond than to just come to the floor with an hour's worth of topics. So
Usually we reach out 10 days beforehand and say, what do you guys want to talk about? We have some ideas. Oh, you have some ideas. Great. And then we sort of make an agenda based on that.
we really want to bring in like community members too. So like inviting towns, select boards, and really try to get more engagement.
All right, anything else on communications and engagement? All right, we will move on then to policy. Jamie?
We are meeting tomorrow.
All right. Brief.
Must be the head.
Right on cue, the hair system.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right.
Bruce was warned.
Yeah, it's a little more noise, but it'll be cool.
All right. Is there any questions for the policy committee? Mary Heather?
Just for the minutes, what do you have on your agenda?
So the agenda is the draft gift policy. We're gonna put the flag policy on, and then currently there's the policy on retention, but I know you said that maybe it's not time to do that at this point. And then there'll be a discussion about sort of a policy audit that will be happening.
Thank you.
What does retention refer to?
We have a retention and promotion policy that is just woefully underwritten. And so, so the hope is that this year, the policy committee will take up that as well as sort of the ed tech world. Once we get school underway, we'll start to pull together some operations folks that can begin to contribute some of the things that are going to be really important in that policy discussion. And then we'll put it on the agenda for the policy committee to begin to work through. The audit that Jamie is talking about will likely produce a number of policies as you've experienced them in the last couple of years, where we look at the all policies that are at least 3 years out of date and determine, do they need to be refreshed. Sometimes they can be refreshed with not very many changes, if any, and other times they need some significant revision, and so we will pull together the policies almost for a consent agenda, as long as that's the approach that the policy committee wishes to continue to do, so that we'll make sure that we'll be refreshing our policies as we need to.
All right. Other questions for policy committee? All right, we will move on then to finance and facilities. Don't know that there's much of an update there.
We're meeting on September 3rd.
What's that?
We're meeting the morning of September 3rd.
All right, there we go. All right, continuing on, we'll go to student outcomes and Ellen.
Yep, we didn't meet in August because of the district leadership retreat that conflicted with our usual scheduled time, and I'm working to figure out if we are going to meet on the normal day in September, which is also a district. It's not a holiday, but a day off from the schools for Labor Day. So more to come at probably in a couple of weeks after we've had another chance to meet. But I think we're going to be diving in on the charge from the board from a couple of weeks ago to be working with Nellie and others around how new data software and opportunities can be measured, and we can talk through how to solicit input from you all on the questions the board would like to answer, the inquiries to try to shape with that data. And just an open invitation for people to email me, and I'm trying to remember, it was me and Steve Cash maybe and Wendy. But just if you've got ideas about what you would like a newfangled cool data system to be measuring and what types of queries to run, don't hold back. I think we'll be proactive in asking you for that, but if you've got those top of mind or if they come to you at some point, just send an email so that can inform how the committee is thinking about that in the early stages of that discussion.
Thank you, Ellen. Any questions for student outcomes? All right, next we're on the negotiations. Steve.
Negotiations committee has been meeting. We can meet again tomorrow. We're still in the study phase where we study the contract and get up to speed on that. Thank you, Mary Heather and Ron and Wendy and Matt for slogging through a long and boring discussion. But there is an end in sight. And we have not heard from the association yet, but we expect to hear within the next 2 months that they would like to negotiate the next contract. So we're kind of in a getting ready for getting ready.
Is there any questions for the negotiations committee? All right, thank you. Next is the Hannaford Career Center. Laura.
We had our meeting last week. We had a pretty short business meeting, nothing really outstanding to go over from that. But we did meet for our retreat that evening as well and set some board goals, which was exciting. So a lot of them similar, I think. Well, I'll have the finalized goals for us, I believe, by the next meeting, the second meeting in September. But a lot of it revolving, again, around the CSA discussion and the Education Transformation Act discussions as well. So that's what we're up to there.
All right, is there any questions about the Hannaford Career Center? All right, we will move on then to CPAC. Thank you, Laura, and on to Mary Heather.
I don't have anything to report for CPAC. I expect they'll probably coalesce and reach out to membership after school begins and make plans for setting a meeting schedule for the year.
Right. Thank you. And then the next is MCTV. Laura.
At our August meeting, we got to tour the new library space, which was very exciting. New studio looking like a real TV studio, which is very exciting. Great job with the setup, MCTV crew, including our very own Drew, who's here with us tonight, or there with you tonight. And we also had some discussions about budget for next year that look like are in pretty good shape. So excited for the library opening and getting into the new space full time.
Exciting stuff to hear. Thank you. All right, was there any questions for MCTV? All right, well, I think that ends our committee and liaison updates. And at this point in our agenda, we are up to our second public comment period. I am not seeing any members of the public in the room. Not seeing any online unless I'm missing some, Jason. All right, So we will move past the second public comment period. Next on our agenda is agenda item K, which is an executive session. Is there a motion around the session? Jason?
Can we do a single motion for both executive sessions? So we need a finding motion for executive session. So I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the support staff contract side letter, which the district has a significant disadvantage with negotiations. That's
All right. Is there any discussion about the motion? All right, we will go ahead and vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. And is there any abstentions? I would be abstaining. All right, so we have approved that motion around executive session.
the finding motion.
The
Finding motion.
No, we need another motion.
And now, is there another motion?
I move that we enter executive session per one VSA 313A1 for a contract side letter and VSA 313A2 for negotiating a real estate lease option. I ask that we include Dr. Baker, Matt Currency, Bruce McIntyre in executive session. Anybody else?
No, I'm gonna send Matt a video once we meet.
All right, is there any discussion about the motion? All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. All right, we have approved the motion